What's up, guys? This is Vox, and this is going to be a kind of a roundtable podcast discussion type thing that I'm starting. And with each episode, I'm going to have different guests on, different people from my friends group that I play with, to talk about different things regarding Destiny and mainly focusing on its Crucible. But, you know, if we get into other topics, if somebody wants us to hit on a certain thing, we can certainly do that. But right now we are tentatively going to be calling this podcast whatever thing, "Don't Shoot the Messenger," because the idea for it sort of came about because we really don't like the messenger pulse rifle in this current 2.0 update. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves to the listeners out there?
Go ahead, Cammy.
All right, I'll go. All right, hi, I'm Cammy. You find me on the Cammy Cakes Gaming YouTube channel. As far as what I can contribute to this podcast, I'm an old Battlefield player, played the objective a lot, and I tend to do that in Destiny. Definitely look at the metagame and strategize what's the most efficient way to win a match, how can I have fun doing it, and what perks can I use to make a montage clip. Gotta love that no scoping.
All right. So
Yeah, I'm Icon. I don't do any YouTube or anything, but I'm always down to discuss the new meta and discuss how it affects the gameplay. I like to kind of sit back and play more of a support role for the team, so different perks and especially gun stuff in the Crucible really affects my playstyle because I found out real quick which ones are the top dogs whenever you're sitting back getting picked off by it.
all
Messenger.
right. So let's just jump right into our first thing that I already talked about. So with the update, the 2.0 update, and the way the weapons rebalancing has worked, pulse rifles they're pretty dominant now. They've I'm gonna go through and read the patch notes, make sure I get this right as I say it, but pulse rifles, um, they got a magazine size increase across the board. It says base stability was reduced slightly. I haven't really noticed that. It's still really easy to land multiple consistent headshots. And then it says that all stable pulse rifles now use the medium rate of fire base stats. So I don't really know what that's referring to, but
I guess that implies that Messenger isn't stable.
Which is crazy to me. This is the biggest thing that's irritated me about the change to Hopscotch. One, because the grind for it was pretty real. I know a lot of people are upset about that. But the base stats of Hopscotch versus the Messenger is so minimal that Messenger should have been knocked down to. Like the base stability of Messenger was only a few points less than Hopscotch. And Hopscotch took a complete kick in the nuts with 2.0.
yeah, I mean,
totally agree there.
like Cammy and I were talking about this earlier, and when it comes to like holding a spot and like head glitching or peeking a corner, if you can do more damage with one burst, then that's more beneficial for peeking out and exposing yourself for the least amount of time possible with the most damage you can send out in that time period. Like I guess what I'm trying to say is high impact is better in almost every scenario. So the messenger just is kind of a head and shoulders above the other pulse rifles on paper, which doesn't really make sense with this being a rebalancing patch.
The biggest thing, whenever it was Thorn Last Word meta, you could go in with a messenger and still keep your range and put down a Thorn or at least trade with them. it was still good when those guns had such a high time to kill. Now, it just seems like if you go up against a messenger, even at close range, you can still get bursted down really, really easily.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the messenger's strength is supposed to be a range weapon. It's supposed to be, like really, really hard to compete against with its stability and the no range drop off, etc. But up close, like you said, I mean the hip fire and then even ADSing with it, it's still extremely, extremely difficult to beat up close unless you get the first hit and you can flinch them off their target.
I think its magazine is pretty big too. Since it's a high impact, it really has some of the most kills per magazine because it only requires what, 2 bursts?
Yeah, I'm pretty
So
sure
3 bullets go a long way.
I'm pretty sure it's always a 2 burst in the head, regardless of armor. So, like, I think, and that's the only pulse rifle that can do that now, because I don't believe there's any other.
Red Death still can, but its range drop off is pretty significant, and all 6 shots have to be a headshot. That's the difference with messengers. You can get away with hitting a body shot or two when you're hitting 38 to the head with every burst.
That's true, yeah. I don't think that Headseeker makes that much of an impact on that damage model, but just the chance that they can miss the headshot and then kind of get bonus damage regardless if one of the bullets hits. I don't like that, but
Yeah.
I mean that's not really unique to the messenger. I think that those kind of perks are silly regardless, affecting damage for bad aim. But
I wouldn't mind a 2 burst gun like the Red Death or the Messenger if it was more difficult. Like to get a 2 burst with the Red Death after 2.0 just over the last couple days it's not consistent. You can't consistently put people down with a 2 burst across map over and over and over. Whereas the Messenger stability and aim assist and everything, the sights are easy to use. You can thread shots on heads across the map really easy, especially compared to like the spare change was the old drop that has the same impact model.
Yeah.
But the recoil on that was so horrendous that trying to get a 2 burst with that gun was really, really difficult unless you really like had your perks rolled to accommodate for the recoil.
yeah,
Agreed.
that's true. I'd completely forgotten about the spare change because it was so unusable for the most part. But like, so would you agree that the messenger's problem is not that it's so deadly at range, it's that it has no drawbacks when you take it out of its supposed dominant range? Like it's just too good outside of that long range, which is supposed to be where it excels.
Yeah, I mean, if you're super long range going up against a sniper, your view kick is pretty extreme if you're getting hit with a messenger.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that does make it rough.
Well, I don't think any weapon should excel at all distances like the messenger does. And then we also bring up the flinch on pulse rifles. That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think that you should get as much view kick as you do unless you're being hit by high caliber rounds, because that's supposed to be the purpose of that perk, is to make the flinch knock them up.
And kind of going back to what you said, if you compare the messenger to any other legendary pulse rifle, legendary, not any, Juju and Red Death are kind of their own beasts, but if you compare it to any other legendary pulse rifle, there's really, I mean, you can use the high rate of fire ones, but the only rerollable one was Scories, I think, and the recoil on that is a little hard to use. The mid-impact ones, now you've got 55 all fate, you've got the now the hopscotch is down in that one, even though they're still a 3 burst Stranger's rifle. I mean, they're all 3 burst rifles. There's not really any incentive to use a lower impact pulse rifle whenever you can still, I mean, granted, the messenger's rate of fire is a little slow, but it doesn't seem to be affecting its gameplay at all.
No. Um, I mean, talking about the mid impact, like the hopscotches now, that damage model is still really, really powerful, especially if you're utilizing the reactive reload perk setup that everybody was trying to roll for. I mean, that's still ridiculously powerful. Um, but for the purposes of this discussion, we're not trying to touch on, getting the optimal roll and being in a certain scenario within Crucible. We're talking about just in a 1v1 fight, without team shot, without um, buffs such as reactive reload. The messenger just stands above every other pulse rifle that's legendary. Just want to go ahead and clarify that's what we're trying to talk about here. We're not going off and imagining every possible scenario where perk X makes it better or perks Y make no. That's not the point of this. So, and I think the other thing that a lot of people are forgetting is what you just said, that these are legendary pulses, which means you free up a slot for your exotic weapon. And I kind of want to segue this into my next thing, which is year one stuff that got altered, because I was running into people running Messenger and other purple pulses, and now they have Icebreaker secondaries, and they just sit at the back of the map and don't move because there's no reason to. They dominate at range, and they never run out of snipe ammo. So
You don't lose it on death anymore. So
and
yeah.
yeah, I was super excited for that, but now I'm not. So
I mean, I think like if there's just a certain few guns that I feel like really put you at an advantage where like an exotic they all seem to have their niche. Like, yeah, you can two burst with Red Death, yeah, you get your health back, but you're not able to thread shots across the map. Juju can rip you and gets that instant reload, and then it's a two burst after the crowd control. Like, that's a really good perk, but it's not every single time you're not two bursting.
yeah, the Icebreaker, I was super hyped when I saw that it kept its ammo through death, because I that was always the one thing that would keep me from using Icebreaker, is I don't want to have to wait. What is it? 8 seconds now?
7.
Yeah, 8 seconds.
7, 8 seconds.
7?
Yeah, I think it's went up from 5 to 7.
Yeah, you're right. 5 to 7. So I didn't want to have to wait 7 seconds to be able to shoot somebody coming out of a respawn. But especially in something like Clash, like, there's no incentive for people to move, so they just sit back there and they never run out of ammo. Even if you kill them, they respawn and they've kept that ammo, and I'm not sure I like that anymore. It's a little too much. It's a little too user friendly.
I mean, it's kind of like what I was saying. Exotics should all have their niche, and the Icebreaker not having to worry about green ammo is really, really useful. But because there's other weapons that can basically cover mid and close range, and then you can still snipe, like, you should be able to use a legendary primary and an Icebreaker and do well. But that doesn't mean that your primary is what you use 99% of the time if you're using the Icebreaker, because it wouldn't take advantage of what you're using it for. You're not having to find special ammo or anything like that. I mean, Icebreaker is a really good snipe regardless.
Oh yeah, no.
And now since the meta's changed a little bit, and you're not necessarily, I don't want to say forced to use like a legendary or an exotic hand cannon, but that's really what it was turning into. It was really hard to compete using an auto rifle, a scout rifle, anything.
I would say you were forced. If you wanted to win a match and other people were using it, you were forced, because you can't match that time to kill.
If you were on like equal, this is so, like, this isn't tangible, something you can really measure, but if you were on equal skill level with your opponent and they were using a hand cannon and you weren't, they had to mess up for you to win. Like,
oh yeah,
they had to make mistakes.
And that's what I think has been my biggest praise of 2.0, is that it's really opened up the viability of other weapon classes. You're not required to use an auto rifle, a pulse rifle, a scout rifle, a hand cannon. There's really hasn't been any one match where there's been everyone's using this gun. Granted, now everyone's discovering the Mida and how it can four-shot, but it's done that forever. And it really takes precision to get the four-shot, and the body damage, not precision, really takes a hit. You can't four-shot on a body.
No, it's
Whereas
six
you
shots
could hit
on the body.
Yeah. I mean, so that's been my biggest praise of 2.0 is it's really opened up the full spectrum of weapons, and you can really see, like, I've been ripped by like a payback SOS, and it makes me just feel like an idiot because that gun's terrible from everything that I know. It's got 0 impact. It's got 100% rate of fire. Like, that gun shouldn't kill me, but they've really, I mean, you got to give it to Bungie. They really did a good job overall of making sure each weapon was balanced. I mean, the time to kill in auto rifles is super similar in mid-range to that as a scout rifle, but once you get out of that effective range of an auto rifle, you really see the scouts start to shine, or the pulls start to shine, or you get close range and you see the last word will just melt you. But if you get across the map, you're not still going to be hitting 111's ADS from halfway across shores of time.
Yeah, no, the last word is still absolutely incredible up close. Like it still destroys people. But you have to be hip firing, and you can get a maximum of 2 kills per magazine, unless you're some kind of freak of nature that hits nothing but headshots from the hip. But do you want to say something, Cam? I feel like I cut you off there.
Well, you would hit the headshots, probably.
Nah, I don't aim for the head, but no, I do agree with you that they've opened up viability for different weapon types, and they kind of have their own, strengths and weaknesses in different areas. And as much as I complain about pulse rifles, they do have their disadvantages. But with the way Destiny works, with something like Clash or Skirmish, where it's completely predicated on kills, long range is just always better because of the way the radar works. It's very difficult to flank. It's very difficult to get close to somebody without getting melted at a distance by the guns that are supposed to dominate at that distance. So I'm not saying that it's bad that pulse rifles are good at range, but it's very hard to get within that auto rifle range or that hand cannon range because especially with like the messenger having third eye, I mean he can literally hard aim the entire time, and if you try to flank him, he'll see it. And I don't know, man. I think that's more about the radar than anything else. But
Well, speaking of the radar, what about when you get in the realm of close quarters? Are you guys noticing that shotguns may have not been touched as much as we hoped for?
I don't know. I don't use shotguns, so I can't speak from a user perspective.
I mean, I've used and been abused by shotguns pre and post 2.0, and it seems, I mean, I'm happy with how shotguns are right now, to be honest. I think slide shotgun is still very, very strong because you can close a really big distance and still get that one hit. But I've maybe only been sniped by like a Matador or a Fellwinters from 2.0 where I'm like, yeah, that's a little ridiculous. And I just have to chalk it up to like maybe it was luck in the chamber, or maybe I was weak or something like that. Like I really, even from using, like I was using high impact shotguns after 2.0, and there was times where pre-patch it would have been a kill without a doubt, but it's dropping them to like 20% health or 15% health. Like it's not quite as bad, but if you get right up in their grill, you still get the kill. So, I mean, I know some people are still mad at shotguns. Personally, from a user standpoint, I think they're really strong. From a like a defensive standpoint, I mean, I've gone up against people that are still trying to blink shoddy and slide shoddy, and now because the range is so much, I mean, you can really tell the range difference. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you can totally tell the range difference now since pre-patch and post-patch, where you can toss a nade on the ground and weaken them and back up or blink back or glide back or whatever you're using, double jump back, and you can get a couple shots on them and maybe drop them, even if they get up in your, like in that viable range for them, you still at least have a chance to kind of back out and deal some damage. You're not necessarily like stuck. I mean, if you play to their game and you play in the close quarters, you're gonna get screwed by its shotgun every time. There's no reason that if you're in a hallway, a shotty can't slide around the corner and drop you.
Well, yeah, but that's the point of a shotgun. So you can't complain when you are entering their realm. Like,
yeah,
if you don't want to get shotgunned, keep your distance. That's
the first day or so after patch, I really noticed it the biggest because you saw these people that were still trying out the old meta, and they'd see you from 30, 40 yards away and think, oh, I'll just blink twice and slide to them and they'll be dropped. But now with the blink fix, with the range penalty to shotguns, with all the old year one perks like aggressive and hammer forged and all these send it, like all these ones that are taking hits. I mean, I really saw it the first couple of days of like how differently the shotgun played out. And so, I mean, in my opinion, I think a shotgun is about where it needs to be right now. Yeah. I think maybe lower the rate of fire a little bit on the highest impact ones, but at the same time, I mean, it's still a pretty big or a pretty slow rate of fire. I mean, just in my opinion, I think shotguns are about right now. I don't know if there's much I would change.
Now, I do have a question about that I kind of want to ask you guys about shotty use. Do you think that, you know how they took, somebody echoing? Because I swear I feel like an echo.
Nope.
I think we're good.
Okay, sorry. Maybe I'm just insane.
Maybe.
The, what is it called? With the blink nerf where your weapon's ready slower out of a blink, do you think that should also apply to sliding? Do you think that would help curb some of the...
That would be pretty cool. Maybe with the special weapon, because I like sliding with the primary weapons. Maybe that'll add another usability to universal mode over other shotguns.
But do you think that sliding was intended to be an offensive tool, or do you think it was intended to be a mobility / getting away defensive ability? Because if you look at it as something that was meant to help you escape, then there's no reason that they wouldn't put the weapons ready slower out of a slide.
I think they meant it to be offensive. Even judging from like the original trailers for Destiny and stuff. I mean, people sliding all over the place.
Okay.
I mean, knee pads I think is a really important perk now because the time to kill has gone up basically across the board. The mobility is huge. I mean, if you make somebody miss 2 or 3 shots, you're gonna win more often than not. So, I mean, I've noticed that you see people aren't using blink as much because of the nerf to that. But even I've seen, you know, it seems like the mobility factor of everything is kind of playing in more to gunfights. So, I mean, it can be used defensively, but I think 99% of the time it's going to be used offensively. And I think that's kind of why the blink nerf and knee pads kind of went hand in hand, because blink was being used so offensively that now you're kind of pushed away from using it offensively and using it more for mobility and maybe even defensively and just trying to get away.
Yeah. I haven't really noticed. I mean, I only played Voidwalker a tiny bit since 2.0 came out. But blink didn't really get a nerf to its distance, just the immunity frames and the weapons readying and stuff.
The weapons ready mostly is noticeable.
Because I mean, like, I haven't noticed a difference in how far I blink.
It's also painfully obvious where their blink's gonna end up.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's definitely easier to kill somebody who's going into a blink, and it's definitely easier to kill them coming out of it.
Put it this way, if you have higher elevation than someone, and as soon as you hear that blink, you have so much time to think about where they're going to land and set up to insta-kill them.
Yeah. And I think that's good, because jumping should be a tactical choice in a fight instead of just spamming a jump ability. And
yeah, in previous meta, I would already be dead by the time I saw the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that a little bit, like just in a game yesterday, I was sitting up on top on a heavy box, and I knew the guy below me had blink. there was no way he was getting up on the building without me seeing him. So I pulled out my shotty and waited. And the frames that he had, where normally I would be dead as soon as he blinked up there, it gave me the ability to drop him because he was using it so aggressively. He didn't even have his weapon out before I had a chance to shotgun him because I was sitting there ready for him to make that move.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it works on the opposite side against me because obviously I played a lot of Rumble, and that was my cause of frustration with shotguns because I don't have my ability cooldowns normally to counter them. So I had to revert to blinking backwards when they slid around the corner. The difference is my weapon didn't ready, so they just instantly sprint forward one step and slid again, and they closed that gap again. I was dead. Could not ready my weapon, and you just don't have the primary time to kills that you used to, so there's absolutely no combating that. You have to run shoddy.
Do you think that slide should have a cooldown like blink where it's 2 and then you can't do it again for a few seconds?
It does have a cooldown, but it's not that drastic.
Okay.
I think 2 is reasonable.
It's actually got 3. You can do 3 slides in a row before it causes
All
a
right,
cooldown.
I'm glad you knew the exact number because I didn't.
I don't really use sliding enough offensively to be able to tell you that. So like, do you think that sliding needs some, or not sliding? Do you think knee pads need some kind of negative effect applied to the perk like they did to so many of the other ones? Where there's a drawback? Do you think knee pads should have some sort of thing where like you slide farther but your weapon takes longer to ready or something like that?
I'd be okay with that. With how
Yeah.
everything kind of has a trade-off, maybe have it increase slide distance, decreased weapon handling time, or something like that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, like this is another thing I wanted to really touch on was the changes from year one perks, and they seem to be of the mindset that everything that's good needs to have a drawback, so that old weapons aren't, still so much better than anything new they create. But knee pads, as I stated, it doesn't really have a drawback. It's just benefit, benefit, benefit in every
I like
possible
that
scenario.
idea, but like I said, and this is mostly because I'm selfish for the montage clip, but I think it should apply to your special weapon only. If I have my primary, like No Land Beyond out, and I get that extended slide around the corner, I want to be able to pull the headshot off.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I guess that is a little selfish, but
It's not. I mean, I think anyone that is an advocate for knee pads is going to be selfish about it. I mean, I used to not think it was. I mean, I used to think other perks were better for that slot, for
Yeah.
a special in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I've gotten used to the slide distance, if you're running something that doesn't have knee pads, you just feel so slow. Like it catches you off guard so bad because now I'm addicted to knee pads. The range increase on it is seriously so extreme. Maybe even if they just nerfed it down a little bit, because it's almost twice as far from what I've tested.
Yeah.
It's a really big increase in slide distance.
I was always a fan of knee pads on the Blade Dancer, like it's the
Fleet-footed.
Yeah.
fleet-footed. I was always a fan of that because I just liked being able to slide out of danger a lot more quickly. I could get around a corner just by sliding because I'd cross the entire corner and be gone. Whereas with a regular slide, they could sometimes still hit me.
Question: if you could roll it on snipers, would you?
Oh, 100%. 100% I would roll knee pads on a sniper. And anybody who laughs at me and I'm looking at you, Ninja, I'm sorry, it would be worth it. But we'll see how it works because those lovely exotic boots for the Titan gonna give you increased slide distance. So.
I don't really value the slide shoddy or the slide fusion on my Titan as much because I get a lot of that movement with just the Titan skating itself. Like I'll cut off the skate right before I come around a corner, and it pretty much gives me the same effect. Minus that with this patch, I noticed jump shotting with the shotgun is a lot harder to do. So maybe it'll come into play, but previously I would just go full speed around a corner, cut my jump, and the momentum would keep me going around the corner so I could just pull the trigger.
Now, does on a Titan when you're skating around and you cut the jump, but you keep that momentum, if you slide, does that immediately convert you to slide's default momentum, or does that keep your momentum through the
No,
slide
slide
animation?
default.
Okay. I was gonna say if you can build up movement and slide farther without the knee pads, that would be a really, really powerful way to move
Or
around.
faster, yeah, that would be
That'd
awesome.
be insane. So, I started touching on it a second ago, but like, okay, so year one perks that they altered. I know there are a couple that we really don't understand what they were doing. Field Scout. What was the purpose of that alteration? Any ideas? Because I can't tell what they did to Field Scout that was needed.
I think it's PvE focused now. I mean, you get the benefit of the Field Scout without having the extended mag. So
They really hurt primaries.
yeah,
Yeah. Primaries
I
with
don't know
Field
if
Scout are
I'm
just
a
worthless.
fan of that change. I mean, I'm kind of salty about all retroactive changes on perks, just because there's guns that I was using that are useless now because the year one perks. I mean, they really did take a significant hit. Like you can even see it on, like now that Zur sold it, everyone's got Galley.
Mm-hmm.
You do the speed reload perk, it's like hardly even worth using now because it's such a small percentage of increased reload. The same goes for, what is it, like perfect balance took a
Yeah.
big hit. I mean, there's flared magwell. I mean, there's so many of them that just took a hit. Field Scout, like you said, took a hit. I mean, as much as I hate it, they're pushing us away from our old weapons. But that's why I'm excited for Tuesday. Be able to see what they've got on the horizon for what they're trying to push as the new guns to work with.
Yeah, because we don't know. We don't know of. I haven't seen it. Maybe you guys have seen it on Reddit or something, but I don't know a full perks list for weapons in this new expansion. So
Nope,
I
I
don't
have
know
no
what
idea.
things you're going to be able to roll or drop as. Sorry, you're not going to be able to re-roll them. But
You can see them on like the database, but I mean, it seems like a lot of their perks, the new perks, are more about situational perks. Like I've seen ones where it's like you get increased reload and handling when 2 or more guys are close to you, or you get increased damage when there's 3 people near you, or like different stuff like that. Or like get a kill, you get the increased mini map or whatever it is. The radar is sectioned off into more. Like it seems like a lot more situational perks.
I don't know if I'm a fan of that because that's kind of out of my control. Unlike something like knee pads, I can choose to slide, but I can't choose to have 3 people next to me at any given time.
Yeah, and that's what I think a lot of the perks that we've seen on year one weapons were more often than not useful in PvP versus PvE. Whereas
Yeah.
something like here, this new perk is called Danger Close. This weapon gains increased reload and handling when 2 or more enemies are near. If you're doing like a raid or something, granted, I know this is mostly Crucible discussion here, but if you're doing a raid or something and you got a bunch of thralls around you, I can see that being a very viable PvE perk.
oh yeah, for sure.
But I don't see that. I mean, I don't see that being a viable option. So it seems like, I mean, even with their damage resistant stuff they're adding to armor pieces and armor buffs and these new perks, it seems like we're going to see a lot more. This is my PvE set gear. This is my PvP set gear. And you're really going to have to cater it towards whichever one you're playing. It's not going to be like a one size fits all. Max your int and discipline. Have your hand cannon reload and
that's
move
not
forward.
a bad thing by any
Yep.
means. Like
Oh, yeah.
I don't
No,
think
not
that's
at
a
all.
bad thing at all.
Nope, now that we got the vault space, I don't really care if we
Yeah.
have PvP and PvE sets.
I wish it had been that way back in the beginning, so I didn't have to play raids to get stuff that was good for multiplayer. Like I wouldn't have to play those kind of things to get the best armor or whatnot.
I feel you.
But, it's just I don't know, man. Like they've said that they don't want Crucible to be taken super seriously, and they've made all these wonderful changes and additions to it. But then, if the majority of the loot drops in the game are going to be tailored towards PvE content. It's like, well, you know, are you kind of trying to pull a fast one under the table? And I don't know. We'll have to see, because obviously this is all speculation up to this point. Um, this is we're recording this before the Taken King drops, like before the actual patch drops. So we don't know. We don't know yet.
I don't know if you wanted to stick on mainly weapon discussion or class discussion, but if you guys are down, I'd like to see what you guys' thoughts are on the changes for the subclasses. We can steer away from any speculation on new ones, but the changes to the old subclasses.
Like what are you talking about?
Like mainly Blade Dance is the one that took the biggest hit, and the grenade changes and stuff like that.
Okay, let's start with the bolt grenades.
Yeah. The Firebolt and Arcbolt were the kings of multiplayer for their ability to hit multiple targets with ease. They didn't require very much precision.
And they did a lot of damage.
And they did a lot of damage.
Ton of damage.
Now it has all those advantages except for not doing the damage. And honestly, here's the difference. Now you have to go for a headshot with that Arcbolt combo instead of a body shot with the best weapons in the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great change.
I noticed a lot of what people were complaining about. They were complaining about the damage that Arcbolt used to do, but I think what people don't realize is that Arcbolt is intended to be a crowd control type grenade. It's not intended to be the best thing against a single target. And unfortunately, because of the way it was the best thing against a single target because it did so much damage.
I mean, I would have probably been okay if Arcbolt got... I mean, I've always thought that each chain should deal less damage. I'm super happy with the drop in damage on it in the first place. I think 122 damage on a grenade is really high. I still think lightning bolts are really strong, especially compared to like pulse grenades only hit for 61. There's really the only benefit to a pulse grenade is that you can't shoot it away. It does half the damage, but you can't kill it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I just wanted to, if you hadn't noticed this icon, Cammy noticed this really quickly. You no longer get weapon buffs for shooting grenades and barrels and stuff. You can't trigger perks off of inanimate objects, which is freaking awesome.
That's big.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You can't get your health back by shooting a trip mine with the Red Death. You can't get crowd
I think you can still get
shooting.
Feeding Frenzy, but you just can't get those perks that actually benefit you. Because I can't see myself in a situation where I have very few bullets in my magazine and I'm like, quick, let me throw my swarm grenade and shoot it so I can reload quicker.
Nah.
Yeah.
So just wanted to throw that out there. That's really cool. But
yeah, I mean, it was mainly just the Blade Dance seems like it took the biggest hit, which could be good, could be bad. I still think Blade Dance offers the most benefit from subclass perks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
with you there.
Which I think is why they went ahead and did the Arcbolt nerf, because same with like Sunsinger. Sunsinger gives you overshield, you get burn grenades, you get increased damage resistance, you can bring yourself back to life if you want to. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of perks in those two subclasses, the Blade Dance and the Sunsinger, that are really good perks regardless of if the grenade is good or not. And that was the biggest problem in PvP, was that you could one-hit body with a last word and hit somebody with a burn grenade with Viking Funeral, and they'd burn out every time. It was so much damage.
Yeah.
Whereas now with the damage decrease, it's still good because it keeps you ticking for so long, which I think is the biggest benefit to that grenade. Is that
I'm gonna scare you here.
So.
You can use Thorn to stack with the Firebolt burn.
I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah.
Thorn is still a great weapon. I've used it for a few games, and it's still super viable in its effective range, just like everything so far.
It is now the ultimate support weapon.
I've never
which is what it was initially.
Yeah,
I've never had a problem with Thorn's DOT. Like, as the idea of it didn't bother me like it did some people. it was just too good at every range, which was why it was broken. So
Messenger.
yeah,
God.
don't shoot the messenger. What was I don't know how much Blade Dancer you played, Icon, because I haven't really played
I mean, I've
anything
got
except.
probably 20 days worth of playtime or something
No,
stupid.
I mean since the patch. I'm sorry.
I've played
no,
a
I haven't
fuckload
touched
on
it.
Blade since patch.
Have you noticed that Blink Strike like refuses to connect with people if they're
Yep.
moving to the side as you one
It's
jet
not
them?
just Blink Strike, it's the Arc Blade itself too.
Like if they're not stationary when you try to Blink Strike them, if they move, you'll just miss.
If they have forward momentum going into you as you swipe, your Blink Strike or Arc Blade just will not kill them. It will make the animation, it'll even make the sound, but just no damage will pop up.
I've also noticed that with shoulder charge. Shoulder charge seems to be if you're at too different of an elevation, or if you're too far away, or I even yesterday I saw Ninja shoulder charge a guy and it literally pushed the guy into the wall, but it didn't do any damage. So I'm not sure if that's just something that we're seeing that maybe is just a little different coding in 2.0, but I've seen a lot of melees seem to be a little,
Yeah,
they seem to be performing a little differently than what we're used to.
I haven't played much Striker since the 2.0, but I've heard people say that shoulder charge has been stealth buffed, stealth nerfed. I've seen different theories, so I don't know what to think of that.
The biggest thing with shoulder charge is if I blink overhead, the shoulder charge will just track upward and kill me. It's
Oh
pretty
my
funny to
gosh, yeah.
watch.
It's almost like a blink strike with its aim assist. It's pretty strong.
But back to Blade Dancer, I played a lot of Blade Dancer over the weekend.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was noticeably different. I had to build my super around the class instead of my class around the super, meaning that I used to use like Hungering Blade and stuff, but now I started using the invisibility. I don't use the super to get kills. I use the super to give me invisibility because it is a suicide sentence to use it in Rumble. You'll just get shotgunned out or supered out. So now I just go invisible and play normally. It's so much easier.
Did Blade get changed at all as far as damage resistance?
Nope.
Because it seems like maybe it's just the team shot then. Because it seems like I've shut down 2 or 3 Blades with just 2 or 3 other teammates with scout rifles, and they just get melted out of it.
yeah. I think the increased team shot is probably to blame for that. Which is funny because I think if you team shotted blades in the past, they would still melt. It's just with the prevalence of the hand cannons and that individual mindset, people didn't team shot as much. They were just like, oh, let me just blink away so I don't
Yeah.
die. And I don't know, like, have you played
I
much?
think the maps might be to blame for this one because I don't even know where I'm going half the time. I doubt the Blade Dancer knows.
That's true. You can't really. Yeah, we don't know the maps yet.
I mean, there's still, I've seen like Peregrine Greaves don't do additional damage in Crucible right now.
No.
Glass Half Full doesn't trigger in Crucible right now. I mean,
Now,
there's several perks that are not functioning properly right now.
do you think that's a bug on the Peregrine Graves, or do you think they decided they're not going to do damage to opposing Guardians anymore? Because if they nerf Peregrine Greaves, I'm going to cry.
I hope not. I mean, they're so situationally. I've always said this. Peregrine Greaves are so situationally effective, but when they work, damn it,
Oh,
they're
oh,
so good,
they're the
man.
best thing in the game when
To
you
be able
can
to
utilize them.
take out a self res, take out a blade. I mean, the
A
ability to
revive. Yeah.
My favorite, my
anything like
personal
that.
favorite is when a guy in an armor bubble is being a complete douche and just like dancing at you. You just run in there, knee him in the face, and suddenly his bubble vanishes. That is so satisfying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, one subclass change tidbit. Golden Gun one hitting everything, even if you're in a super, I think was a great change.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So,
frustrating
do
because I
we
got
know if
shot
we
out of a
survive
smash,
with
but
Skull of Direham Kara?
Yeah.
I, don't,
Does unstoppable still make you eat a goldie shot?
I mean, I got one hit out of a gold. I like waited for him around the corner, and he got me before I could smash the ground, and I still died. But I don't know if I was running unstoppable.
Because I think one thing I've always said, and I mean anybody who's played with me before knows this. I always complained that Voidwalkers get so much damage resistance if they're not using the skull helmet. And if they made it so that that is actually what you have to use to survive stuff now, I think that's fantastic. Because I think if you're not running the skull of a Homker, I don't think you should be able to eat a sniper headshot when you're throwing a Nova. But
Well,
that's
with
just me.
gunslingers having the better super now, I mean, as far as damage, one-shotting everyone, it's a good segue to say that Defender Titans now have the ultimate defense against them. Suppressor grenades. They actually work.
Yeah, I'm really happy about.
Consistently too.
I'm really happy about. I think Defender's gonna be so good. And
Like, not only did they fix the radius on those grenades by making them bigger, but they also fixed that effect where, like, it'll hit a Blade Dancer, but the Blade Dancer will still be active, but had that little red aura above his head
Yeah.
indicating that he might be suppressed, but he's not.
I think part of that might have been related to the immunity frames from like Blink. If that was coded into the Blade Dancer's swipes somehow, that might have been part of that reason. But
Yeah, defenders definitely got a much needed buff with their grenades being actually usable now. And I think it's also, I mean, defenders are guaranteed orbs. I'm glad that they made the changes to 1 kill equals 1 orb. No orbs on just self-reviving doesn't make an orb. Stuff like that.
I used to run a clan tag that was called 1 kill 3 orbs on the Sunsinger because I'd use Light Beyond Nemesis, and if I killed somebody, I would generate 3 orbs on that first kill, and that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
Imagine playing teams of 3 in skirmish like that.
that's when I used it. Is I
Oh
would
my
just be in
god.
skirmish, and it'd be like, okay, well, everybody runs away when they hear me pop Radiance, but if I get one person, that's basically the equivalent of wiping a team with Blade Dance.
Yeah, I played a
And
team like that. They never ran out of supers.
yeah,
And because they all ran the quick res helm, we couldn't kill them either.
yeah, I think orbit quality is fantastic. Although I'm not. Once we get the new armor with the cooldowns being normal again, I'm not sure if Defender is going to be too good because 3 guaranteed orbs on a bubble, that could be a little imbalanced as compared to the other classes.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that pans out.
Someone talking in the background? I keep
Yeah,
hearing someone.
I think purple's in
Yeah,
the
I think that's
background.
me. I'm sorry.
Give him a slap.
So, what else we not hit on yet?
Let's see here.
Oh, okay. Um, have you played much skirmish since the 2.0 icon, or you've been mostly playing Rift?
Probably 80% Rift, 20% skirmish.
Okay, and Cammy and I played a lot of skirmish with just the two of us, and it's extremely noticeable when you have a random teammate now because um, the wolf pack mentality when you're playing a team of 3, if they just stay within like touching distance of each other and just travel as a group and then team shot everything in front of them. If you have a random, it's very difficult to beat people like that because it's more difficult to trade a 1-for-1 because of the time to kill now. And yeah.
And it's much harder to take on a 1v3, whereas like you could run in with if you got an arc bolt tag and then one dinked the 3 guys, you'd have 3 kills real easy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now it'd take 12 consecutive Mida headshots, or it would take even 6 consecutive bursts of all headshots from the Messenger or Red Death.
Yeah. That's assuming you even have your ability cooldowns because we know that armor affects it now.
Yeah, I mean that's for right now, so we'll see how that works once cooldowns are normalized again. But
I was looking at the exotic blueprints for the year 2 versions of some, like the Armamentarium, for instance, and like my year 1 had almost a perfect roll, and the year 2 version has almost double the stat value on it. Whereas like the Arma had like 40 intellect or whatever, 40 discipline after this recent patch. The year 2 version has 40 discipline and 40 intellect.
I'm not. I don't know how this is gonna work because obviously the year two stuff hasn't come out officially yet, and we're just looking at the blueprints and such. I'm not a fan of how they altered some of the armor stat values to have different. I don't like that because I felt like if you were going to use a certain piece of armor, you had to accept the stat value that was on it. And the one that comes to mind is something that Cyfax was talking about a lot. The Light Beyond Nemesis. It used to be pure strength, and now it's like intellect discipline or something. Why would you do that? Like, the only drawback to that helmet for most people was the strength on it, and you just completely remove that. Like, I don't understand that they're taking away choices. Um, I don't know if you've seen the new exotic armor on the Bungie inventory or whatever they call it, but like all the exotic pieces have a perk tree where you select what stat you want to boost. Like that's silly. You're taking away
The
making
nature
the
of the name,
you're taking away the
exotic.
making the choice of what armor piece you want to use, and now it's I want to use this armor piece. Let me decide what stat benefits me the most. If you were gonna do that, make it so that the armor can drop with different stat values. So it'd be like, oh, I just got an armamentarium, but it's got strength on it. So that's not what I'm looking for. It would like I don't know if that makes any sense.
Are
But
new exotics having a set stat value?
I don't know how that's going to work as far as you're talking about when you like rebuild one with a blueprint. How
Well, because
it's
here's what I was seeing is, so like if you go into the little kiosk, your
hmm
year one, like I'll just remember this off the top of my head. My Paragon Greaves have 41 intellect. Okay.
yeah.
If I go or have 40 intellect, if I go into the exotic blueprint, I can buy them and it has 41 intellect. So I thought it was going to be whatever your best roll was or something, but I mean, it almost seems like they're normalizing exotic stat rolls. I don't know if that's just what I'm seeing, and maybe they can still drop with random ones, but you can buy the old ones, or like if there's a set number that you can buy it at. Because if you look in the kiosk or whatever, each piece has a set stat value, and if you compare it to the ones that you have in your inventory, they vary a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work either, but I know I don't want people to be able to get a shitty drop stat wise and then be able to dismantle it and go buy one from the blueprint that has better stats. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, same here.
we'll see how it ends up working out. If the ones from the blueprints are just going to be like smack dab in the middle of the rolls you can possibly get, that might be one thing.
Well,
But
here's one thing to think about with the rolls. We've never had stats on the ghosts before, so I was nearing some crazy stat rolls pre-patch where I was 100%, 90%, and then had some change on my strength
yeah,
for intellect discipline. With the ghost, I'm suspecting that you can get a tier 5, a tier 4, and a tier 3 stat between all three. That's insane.
Do
hmm
the artifacts add stat stuff too, or is that just going to be modifiers? Because if you can get intellect discipline stuff on that too, guaranteed you're going to be able to at least max 2 of them.
we don't know. I know that the artifacts are going to be modifiers to the way stuff like your perks and such. I don't know if they're going to have stat values. Let me look that up. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Um, artifacts. Um, that's a video. I don't want to watch that. I don't know.
Guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it works. Um, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you guys want to? So we're getting close to an hour, so
No one wants to listen to us for an hour.
yeah, and anybody who's made it this far, you guys are awesome, and thank you for Thank you for listening to this as long as you have. Let's see. I've pretty much gone through the entire list of stuff that I had to talk about, so I don't know.
Closing argument right here.
Oh
What do
yeah.
you think is going to be the new meta? What is your speculation?
Oh, you didn't even have to ask me.
Uh, I don't really know. I mean, I'm still going to be using Mida Snipe like I have been for the last 6 months because I'm used to it and they didn't change anything about it, so I'll be fine.
Not what are you going to use? What is the meta going to be? We all know you don't follow the meta, so
3 words. No land beyond. Only.
You're hoping so much. I don't know, man. We're gonna have to see how some of these new exotic weapons play out, cause
If we're talking year 1 weapons, it's going to be Juju and Red Death
yeah,
with the occasional Thorn.
the pulse rifles
The
are
occasional
just
Mita.
so powerful.
I'm surprised you put so much weight on Mita.
I mean,
Or so little weight on Mita.
Little, I'm just basing it off time to kill.
the Mita's fantastic, obviously, like we all know that. But if you're going in a straight 1v1 fight and the pulse rifle shoots you at the same time you shoot it, you're gonna lose that. Like it's not gonna happen because you have to hit 4 individual headshots and they have to just basically 3 burst you in the body if they're missing the head, and they're constantly flinching you more than you flinch them. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's not even a question.
I'm going to make one important note about the multi-tool and the increased use in it. I'm finding it really hard to snipe people because they're just moving faster than normal. I'm not used to tracking their bodies that quickly, especially when the speed at which they're walking does not match the speed that they're actually moving.
You're talking about the animation being different.
The animation being
yeah.
different than the movement speed. Yep.
I don't know. I haven't really noticed that, but I guess I haven't really played against a bunch
It's just
of.
me. It's because whenever I go to class because of like my major, we literally sit there for like 30 minutes at a time and analyze movement.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably just me.
I thought you were about to make some terrible joke about when I walk to class. If I'm late, I pull out my Mida tool. I get there on time. Man.
No, I pull out the No Land Beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think fusion rifles are ever going to become meta just because of the charge time.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree. Have you seen the frenzy with knee pads? It's ridiculous.
Yes, I will say those are good.
That's not
fast charge rate.
But Icon's right. That's not going to be like the.
It's not going to be meta because it's not as guaranteed. You have to hit bolts with that. Whereas if you're a shotgun, seems to be a lot more predictable. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay, I get you.
I can be a lot more confident in a shotgun shot versus a charge up because the bolts sometimes will all connect from 20 yards or they'll all miss from 20 inches.
Yeah. No, I mean.
I guess the way I've always used it's different than what most people do. I pre-fire doorways. I let them walk into the bolts. I don't hunt them down like with a shotgun. I let them make the mistake. They lose most of their health, and it's an easy primary cleanup or a melee.
Yeah, I mean, fusions definitely have their place, but as far as like your standard go-to, try hard, whatever loadout, no, they're never gonna be like a shotgun.
I think my guess for new meta is going to be the 3-burst pulse rifles or a Red Death variant or Juju maybe. I think pulse rifles are going to be dominant with shoddy follow-ups to combat the close range.
I'm gonna be interested to see how the what is it called, the exotic stranger's rifle. What is the name of that thing?
No time to explain.
No time to explain.
Yeah, that one. I'm gonna be interested to see how that works because if it's still a 3 burst in the head and it has that perk where you get ammo back if you hit headshots, that's
Triple Tuesday.
That's like a Juju with higher impact. Like, I don't know, man. We'll see. But Anyway, we just hit the hour mark, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Again, thank you to anybody who's made it this far for listening. It's went on a little bit longer than I planned, but we had a good discussion going, so there's that. I'll be making more episodes of this in the future, have different guests. Hopefully Ninja with Noel will agree to come on, even though he's a big, Twitch celebrity. I hope he'll accept my invitation. And I wanted to give a shout out to Usurping Square. Met you in Crucible the other day. You were on the other team, and then you sent me a message and said hey. So I just wanted to shout you out in this. Anything you guys want to say before we end this recording?
Don't shoot the messenger. I hate that gun.
Yeah, clearly. Cammy?
Yeah, I got a closing message. Stop sending me hate mail when I use the last word in Thorn. I've waited months to use it in Crucible without feeling like a jackass.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.